Queensryche's 1997 album Here in the Now Frontier would see another dramatic shift in the band's sound and style. And if you've been watching this discography or review set I've been doing, and I apologize for not getting these out a lot quicker, I really should have been done with this discography probably 2 months ago, but things come up. Anyways, you'll notice that pretty much at the beginning of every one of these videos, except for the EP, I have stated that each album sees another dramatic shift in the band's sound. And this album and the next video, which is going to encompass everything from Q2K through at least Dead and Decayed to Chaos, I'm probably going to throw in my thoughts on FU in there as well. These next two videos are really where it becomes significant and why I wanted to stress that point. And I wanted to stress that point and say that it becomes significant in this video and the next for two different reasons. And one of them you'll figure out in this video, the next one, whenever I get that out. The fact that I'm going to be covering a whole set of albums in one video should probably give you an idea of where I'll be going with that video. But anyways. So with 1997's Here in the Now Frontier, Queensryche adopted a more, at the time, modern approach to their sound. The guitar solos were pretty much either taken away or reduced to, I don't know what you would really call it, but nothing that really sounded very imaginative or nothing that really sounded spectacular. There's not one great guitar solo on this album. Now, this album is heavier than the past couple of albums, which is a good thing. The sound ends up kind of having this tighter sound to it. I don't really know how to describe the sound to it. I think of it as just sounding very tight, very in the production booth. There's not a lot of reverb or a lot of room for the music to grow and expand. It's just, it hits you in the face and then it's gone. And Geoff Tate's vocals are kind of done the same way on here. And to me, this would become a problem later on, but for this album, it actually works and goes along really well with the music. So there are no really good dual twin guitar sounds playing off of each other or anything like that, but they do manage to throw in a few interesting little moments here and there, more due to effects they use on the guitar or something like that. But there are some subtle little moments that are pretty cool and that I do enjoy. Like I said, the sound of the music and the sound of the vocals, what they do with Tate's vocals on here, they really do work well together. This isn't a style I would like the band to have continued, and they really don't anyways. But as a one-off album, it's actually not bad. This one does kind of start what I think a lot of people would consider the dark chapter in the band's discography that would pretty much go through everything that I'm going to talk about in the next video. But I don't know, for me, I actually quite enjoy this one. I find the songwriting to be still pretty solid. There are some weak spots. I definitely do notice some moments where I feel like the songwriting was starting to falter a little bit and get a little worse or a little lazy. But as I went back through Promised Land and Empire and the Queensryche discography as I've been doing these, I mean, I've noticed that I didn't really like Empire as much as I used to, and I like Promised Land about the same, maybe a little less, but for the most part about the same. To me, those weren't perfect albums either, so I don't know. I can't really complain too much about the songwriting because I generally think most of it's pretty good. The style is a lot simpler, though, and that can turn some people off, and I can understand why a lot of Queensryche fans don't like this album. It's simply not the style they want, even though each album they put out to this point has been different anyways. There is still a Queensryche element that is missing from it, so I can easily understand why some people don't like it. But for me personally, I do quite enjoy this album. So let's go ahead and get into the track listing. My favorite songs on this album are easily as near and dear to my heart as my favorite songs on any of the previous Queensryche albums. So Sign of the Times is the first track. It's mostly kind of a slower to mid-tempo rocker. It's got a nice little hook to it. I am not really big on the single phrase choruses, although I did enjoy IMI, which I mentioned in the last video. But I don't know, for me, the hook and kind of chorus part of it is more of the acoustic part that kind of comes in to kind of play off of the Sign of the Times part. And I think it's done pretty nicely. And this ends up being a song that I do quite enjoy a lot. It's a little preachy, but a lot of bands do that. And I don't know, I kind of try to ignore the preaching. I mean, I'm a Megadeth fan, so I'm used to bands that like to preach to you their beliefs and stuff. And it's not going to be the only song we're going to get on here. And well, Empire was full of a lot of preaching too, and that album was considered a classic. So it doesn't really bother me that much here, especially considering the message seems to be one well, we need to treat each other better as a society, which is true. See, now I'm preaching to you. Cuckoo's Nest is the next track, and this is another slower paced rocker. I really like the chorus to this one. You know, again, musically, it's nothing really spectacular. I do like, if I haven't said it already, that this album is heavier than the previous couple albums. I think I mentioned it, but I don't think I mentioned that. I do really like that aspect of this one. And this song, it's got a nice chorus. I really like it. It's got a part at the very end, the "Won't Stop Trying" part that they repeat over and over again as the song ends. That at times used to get stuck in my head back in the day when this album was out. Get a Life is next, and this one doesn't really have that standout of a chorus, but I really like the pacing to the song. It's a little bit more up tempo. It's not as heavy probably as the last couple of songs, at least at moments. Much like Promised Land, I didn't have the time to really sit down and listen to this album before doing this review, so I just kind of had to skim a couple of the tracks that I didn't remember as well. But I remember this one being a lot more up tempo. The chorus, like I said, isn't really that standout, but it still works really nice. And I think the song is still quite good and still pretty catchy for what it is. And it transitions nicely into Voice Inside the next track, which this one's a more mellow track. It's not quite a ballad. It's still got some, distorted guitars in the verses, but it's definitely got a lot more melody to it. This is another song I do quite enjoy. I really like the way these two tracks transition into each other, and I really like the intro and outro portion of this song. It's kind of some guitars played with a different little effect on it, and it sounds really cool. Some People Fly is next, and this is the first ballad on the album. It's a lot of acoustic guitars, your basic verse, chorus, verse, song, as most of these are. I do really like this song. There's not a lot special about it, but it is one that I do enjoy. I've really liked all of these songs up until this point. Saved is next, and this one. Now, this song I have not heard in a long time because it's one that I didn't really care for. I remember it's a heavier track. I don't think it was really too bad, most of the song. It's just, instead of a chorus, you just get Jeff Tate screaming, "Save me," or "Save me." And he's not screaming like he did in The Warning or anything like that, where it was actually really awesome screaming. It's just kind of annoying screaming. I didn't really like it. There's no melody to that chorus. There's nothing that really brings the song together. It's okay if you don't mind that aspect of the song, but for me, I couldn't get into it. You is one of my two favorite songs on the album, and that's next. It's kind of a poppy little rocker track. It's got a nice little guitar riff going throughout the verses of the song. And there's some cool little guitar effects and guitar licks going on in there. It's a really catchy chorus. I'm always a fan of catchy choruses, so this song ends up being a winner in my book. I did really enjoy this song. Heroes next, and this is one of those songs I had to listen to because I remember the song, but I couldn't remember the name that went to the proper song. But this is another ballad. It's a slower, mostly acoustic track. This one has one of those subtle moments that I think of when I think of subtle moments that I do quite enjoy on this album. There's some electric guitar playing in the background of the song over the acoustic, but it's very subdued. And it's got a kind of a cool effect on it, kind of something similar to what you'd hear a little bit in You, even. But it's just toned down a lot and just used kind of to fill in the song, and it's actually kind of cool. It's not a bombastic song. It's a very subdued track, but I don't know. I really enjoy this tune. It's not one of my favorite Queensrÿche songs of all time, or even one of my favorite songs on this album. I do enjoy it. I appreciate the subtlety of this song. Miles Away is next, and this is kind of a mellower track. It's heavier than the last track, but it's still kind of a mellow track. This one's not bad. It's not one of my standout favorite songs, but it's still pretty good. It's got a cool chorus and everything. Reach is the next song, and it's a little heavier than the last two songs. It's a little bit more up tempo. The chorus probably isn't ultra catchy, but it's good enough for the song. It ends up being a pretty cool song. I do quite enjoy this one. And really, that's kind of. The album really could have stopped here, honestly. The big problem I have with this one is I feel like 14 tracks is too many given the songwriting. And as you've seen to this point, I've enjoyed all but one song. Unfortunately, the percentages after this point aren't nearly that good. We get a song that I cannot remember the title to. I think it had Chris DeGarmo doing vocals, or it had somebody else doing vocals. I don't know. I tried listening to it. Honestly, I just never could get into it back in the day, and I don't even have it anymore. So I couldn't even listen to it unless I went to YouTube and did it. I didn't feel like putting that effort into a song that I don't really remember liking anyway. So we're just gonna move on. Hit the Black has some really cool moments. It's a heavier track. It's more up tempo. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Reach, but the verses are a little better, but the chorus is significantly worse. The verses are awesome to this track. I like the pacing a lot, and I think Tate's vocals fit the pacing of the song really well. It's got a decent guitar riff going on. But then the song just slows for what I assume is the chorus, as he just sort of says, like, I'm going down, and there's a lot of vocal effects and stuff going on in this track. I don't know, it feels like an unfinished track. Like they had some ideas going, but they just couldn't really put it all together. I don't know. There are aspects I enjoy of this song, like I mentioned, but I don't know. It just doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Anytime, Anywhere is another rocker track, but this is just another one of those songs that honestly I don't really remember. I still have this track. I could have listened to it before talking about it, but I already know that I don't really care much for it. It's not a horrible track by any means, but it's not really a great one. And then Queensryche usually manages to close their album on a really strong, epic sounding ballad. Now, Eyes of a Stranger wasn't really as much of a ballad. It had some soft moments, but also had some rocking moments too, and it ended up being still another one of those stellar album closers. Well, this time we have Spool, and I really do enjoy this song. This ends up being my probably second favorite song on the album, or tied with You for my favorite song on the album. I'm not really sure, but this ends up being a song that I do quite enjoy. It's a more mellow track, but it's got kind of an up tempo to it, but it's a softer one at the same time. I do really enjoy this track a lot. I like the melodies. It's not overly poppy. It does have a decent enough chorus, but it's not one of those poppy, catchy choruses that I usually love. But just something about the song, I really love the mood to the song as well. I think it's really cool. And overall, it ends up being a decent track. And there's also a bonus track for those who get that edition. And I think nothing but the remasters are available now, so I think it comes out on there. Chasing Blue Sky is another acoustic-y type ballad with a little bit more up tempo to it, I guess. And it's another one of those kind of subtle melodies. It's not overly catchy, but for me, that track works. I really wish that song had been on here instead of one of these songs that I don't care for. I would vote for the one that had somebody other than Jeff Tate singing on it because I know that was my least favorite. But I could have also seen having it on there in place of Saved. Those are really the two tracks that I really think could have been removed easily, but they could have taken out Anytime Anywhere as well. I think this album overall is a fairly strong album, but really I like about 2/3 of it, and then the rest really didn't need to be there. So yeah, even though this is a different sound for Queensryche and something just completely different, see how many more times I can say different. I don't mind. I still like this album, and in some ways, even appreciate this album more for the fact that it's different. But like I said, each album that this band has done to this point has sounded different. See if I can get in there a few more times. But this still ends up being a classic album for me. I still do quite enjoy this one. I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10. It's, to me, right on par with Empire and Promised Land. Maybe a little better in some ways, a little worse in other ways. And just looking at my overall enjoyment of it, that's kind of where I rate it as. I think it's a little stronger in the songwriting department, but musically not as impressive as, say, maybe Promised Land, which has some, more inspiring moments musically, and it's not the smash hit Empire was. But overall, I do enjoy this album, and it's not for every Queensryche fan, but I like it.